Good morning again, Cornerstone. This is Wednesday, May 20th, and great news this morning. Pam is coming out of quarantine, and we're praising the Lord for His faithfulness. And I believe that it is the prayers of His people that have kept her strong. We want to continue our series on the book of Jonah. We're going to look at chapter 2 this morning. But before we do that, I just want to just share a little bit about running away. And I remember, and you may remember too, when I was in my elementary school years, my sisters and I would oftentimes take our little red wagon, fill it up with our things, and tell our parents we're running away. One time my grandmother helped us pack the wagon and waved goodbye as we went, because they knew that we would be back by dinner time when we got hungry. And then there's the more serious running away, and that happened to me in college when I said I'm going to have to choose between a dual lifestyle, one following the Lord or one drinking with my buddies at the fraternity. And you can understand that at the time I thought, well, it's easier to run away from God than to run away from my lifestyle. And so in the middle of that choice, I was at a party, and I had a beer in my hand, and I heard not an audible voice, but a voice saying, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." And that's when I knew that the Lord is serious about us and about the fact that we belong to Him. Well, Jonah finds himself in a similar situation. As we remember from yesterday, God said go one direction, and Jonah went the opposite direction. And now he finds himself in the belly of a large fish. Now, how he survived, we don't know, and we are not going to really delve into that part of it. But what we want to look at is Jonah's response to God getting his attention. He was asleep in the hull of the ship, and the men who he was with were crying out to their gods because of this great storm that had come upon them. They wake him up, and lo and behold, it is Jonah who has caused this great storm. He tells them, "Throw me overboard," which they do, and he's swallowed by a great fish. And in the middle of the fish, Jonah prays. And it's a very interesting prayer, because he's not really praying for his escape. He's praying different character traits of God, different attributes of God. And I want us to look at that now. It says that Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress I called to the Lord, and He answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead I called for help, and you listened to my cry." God is a God who answers us. God is a God who listens to our cries. What are you crying out to God for this morning? I want to guarantee you that He hears your cry. He listens as you call out to Him. Jonah goes on, "You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled over me. All your waves and breakers swept over me. I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple." God is a God who is not afraid to banish us. When we are being stupid, he is a God who will chastise us. And Jonah recognizes that. And in his prayer, he says, hey, I fled from your presence, but you're the one who banished me. And truly it is. And why did God do this? What was it that he wanted to do? He wanted to get Jonah's attention. And my question for us today in this current COVID-19 season is, does God have our attention? Not that he's banished us, but that he's trying to get us to pay attention. We're in our homes. We're being told to stay at home, and in a sense, that's a form of banishment, but not really. But what is he saying to you? What is he saying to me? It's a time when we should not only be crying out to the Lord because he's listening, but it's a time where he is trying to speak, and we need to be listening. Jonah goes on, "The engulfing waters threatened me, the deep surrounded me, seaweed was wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down, the earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I will make good. I will say, salvation comes from the Lord." Isn't that awesome? He says, you're a listening God. You're a banishing God. You've put me into a fish prison for a time. And now he says, you're my only salvation. You're the only way out of this mess. And why can't we see this today? He is the only way out of this mess. We need to cry with Jonah. We need to say, you are the only salvation in this time. We can only look to you for the right answer. Our temptation is to look to the medical people or the political leaders or to some other source for answers to this COVID-19 pandemic. But God is saying, hey, I'm here. I'm available. Salvation comes from the Lord. We don't know how short this will be or how long this will be, where we need to stay isolated and apart from each other. I would assume there will be some limited amount of this for some time in the foreseeable future. But the answer is not in the standard places that we look. The answer is in the Lord, our God. And Jonah knew this. In the middle of the ocean, in a aircraft carrier fish, he knew that his only hope was going back to the temple, going back to the places in his memory where God was present, and he could get answers. Well, our final verse this morning in verse 10 says, "And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land." God commanded the fish. The Lord isn't in charge of nature. He's in charge of everything. And we can trust him. Tomorrow we'll look at what happens after Jonah finds himself on dry ground. But for today, remember, God is a hearing God. He is a banishing God. And he's a God of salvation. Have a blessed Wednesday morning.